Okay, folks, in this video, we are getting into the introduction to After Effects. Now, if you folks would like to, you folks can download the lecture notes. There's two sets of PDF lecture notes that you folks can download from the Illustrator class website. Also, if you like to follow along with some of the exercises or demonstrations that I will be showing you folks can download the exercises using this link in the download section. The other items is part of your project that you will be handing in. Okay, so for now, you can go ahead and download everything if you like. Uh, and if you want to go ahead of uh, the pace, I guess you could say. I'll only be putting out a few videos, but if you folks want to jump ahead, you can read through all of the notes just to get a head start. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So this is the first PDF that you folks will download. After Effects Lecture Notes 1. Okay, and basically what After Effects is a way or a tool to create motion graphics and visual effects. Now, a lot of studios use After Effects from the news. You see a lot of those graphics, especially for the weather and whatnot, and other types of graphics like the opening of the news segment. They have all those different types of graphics that showcase the the studio logo or the news logo. You see it on sports programs, NFL, NBA. They use those graphics as well. But because this is an introductory course, we will only be covering the most basic tools and features in After Effects, or AE is a short way of saying it. The program is so robust, so huge, that it would literally take weeks, months, probably even an entire year, and we would only be able to cover, I'd say, maybe half to three quarters of the software. So basically, we're being that this is an introductory course, we're only going to cover the bare minimum items. Okay. Now, some motion graphics and video terms that you'll hear me saying as I make the videos is keyframes. That's one of the important items of After Effects, keyframing. Okay, and I'll let you folks read through this on your own. Time code, okay, which basically shows the length of time that the video is and where along in the video you folks are working. A codec. A codec is a combination of two different words, compression and decompression. So codec. Basically, a codec. What a codec is while you are producing the video, it takes the video and shrinks it down into a smaller file so that it can be transmitted over the net, or even through cable if you're watching cable television, and it is decompressed over on the receiver side. So that would be your television, or if you got something like your Apple TV or even your computer, it decompresses on that side back to its normal size. Think of it as like a zip file. You zip the file to make it smaller so it transfers easier or uploads easier through the net. And on my side, when I receive your zip file, I unzip it so that the files become normal size and I can view it. So that's kind of like another way of describing what a codec is. Render is when the computer renders out the video or creates the video using a codec. Okay. Alpha channel is a mask it works just like the mask in Photoshop, masking out parts of an image or video that you don't want the viewer to see, and uh, using black and white. Okay, so alpha can be thought as a transparency channel, much like in Photoshop. Motion graphics, the animation of abstract items, type or font, shapes, other types of artwork, for the purpose of creating motion for the viewer. Okay, now we're going to get into the interface and the foundation of After Effects. So when you first get started, you're going to see a start or the home screen, something like this. So let me go ahead and launch After Effects for you folks. So after you get this start screen here, or the splash screen, this is what a splash screen is called. And basically this is how it looks like when you first start up. Okay, you get the home screen here. Now, if you folks don't want to see the home screen, you folks, just like in Photoshop and Illustrator, folks will have to come over to the preferences. Now for the Mac users, it's here, After Effects, Preferences. For you Windows users, you'll be under Edit, and somewhere around the bottom here, you will see Preferences. And you go to General, and you click Enable Home Screen. So you want to uncheck that box. Then you won't get this start or home screen every time. I'm also going to turn off Show Tooltips. You folks may want to keep that on since you're still starting out. That's up to you folks. A second item I want you folks to take a look at is Media and Disk Cache. It should be enabled. Maximum disk cache size. This may differ for all of you. For me, I don't have a lot of hard drive space left on my hard drive. I only have about 70 gigabytes left or so, or yeah, roughly about there. So I'm going to reduce this down to about, let's say, 20 gigabytes should be good for now. And for those of you folks who don't have a large hard drive or hardly have any space available, you may want, you'll have to take a look on your computer to see how much hard drive space you have left. For the Macs, all you have to do is go to your Macintosh hard drive icon here. If you don't have this up, you can find it by going to Finder, Preferences, and under the General tab, make sure hard disks is checked. If you do that, then you'll get the Macintosh hard drive disk here. For you Windows users, you will have to go to My Computer and basically double click on it, and then you'll see a picture of your hard drive along with the available space left. So for you Mac guys, you can right click on the Macintosh hard drive icon and click Get Info. Now I have, let's see here. Oh, I only have 32 gigabytes available of free space. So yeah, 20 gigabytes should be enough. And what the disk cache does is every time you do a preview, kind of like you want to look at how your work looks so far, you're doing a preview of your work. Every time you hit the play button in After Effects, it creates a temporary file of your video, and depending on how big your video files are, it can quickly eat up your disk cache size. So every once in a while, you may get a message that says you have to free up space on your hard drive. And if that happens, all you have to do is come to After Effects, Preferences, and once you get your Preferences window up, come to Media and Disk Cache, and then click on Empty Disk Cache. And what it'll do is it'll free up the 20 gigabytes. So when you start getting close to 20 gigabytes, filling up your disk cache, that's when you'll get another small window that says your disk cache is almost full. You may want to empty it out. And so that's when you bring up your Preferences window, click on Media and Disk Cache, and click Empty Disk Cache to free up space so you get that 20 gigabytes back. Okay? Or whatever size you choose for your disk cache size. I believe the default is roughly about 90 gigs, 97 gigs or so. And as I've shown you folks, if you guys don't have that, I have roughly about 35 gigs free on my hard drive. You want to choose a number that still leaves some free space on your hard drive, okay? So I'm still leaving about 15 gigs or so free on my hard drive. You're only taking up 20. Okay. So then, now that I've turned off the home, unchecked the home screen panel, the next time I start up After Effects, this home screen won't be up. Instead, I'll get something like this. All right. So this is your After Effects work area. Okay. So if we take a look here, as you can see here, now some of these might be a little bit dated. This is After Effects 2018, and of course this is After Effects 2020 version. All right, so it's more or less the same layout, maybe some differences. Okay. All right, so composition settings. As you can see here in the middle area, when you first open up After Effects, you're going to have two options to choose from: new composition or a new composition from footage. So let's start off with, we're going to be using new composition from footage in just a moment. I just wanted to show you the new composition window. So if you click on that, you get this window here, composition settings, and the breakdown is like such. So you get the composition name, number one, number two, preset menu here. So if you click on this box, preset, you will get a drop down. Here's the preset window. You get a drop down of the different types of formats of video. We'll leave it on the default, which is HD TV 1080 29.97. So basically that's here's the dimensions: with 920 pixels, height 1080. Now the 1080 is where you get that 1080p from that you folks hear about on television. 29.97 refers to the frame rate, or 30 frames per second. So if you ever heard that before, 30 frames per second, so basically 30 still frames or pictures sewn together to make 1 second of footage. And that's usually television speed. Film speed and I believe animation speed runs about 24 frames per second. For television and video, it's 30 frames. And now you might even see a lot of television, usually the 4K TV and whatnot, and videos, you see 60 frames per second. Okay? And those look almost 3D lifelike. You got the pixel aspect ratio here. Different formats. We're just sticking with the default square pixels. frame rate 29.97 or 30 seconds or 30 frames, I'm sorry, per second. You got the start time code, duration. Okay, and you folks will know what that means in a bit. And of course, background color. You can change this by clicking here and changing the background color. Default is black. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. You can also choose to start a new composition from existing footage. Okay. Now, if you click on this, you already need to have a video clip ready. And what happens is if you select, let's say, a video clip you already have, and you import it through here by clicking on that, and I'm using the AE exercise files 1, which, as I mentioned before, you can find by clicking AE exercise files in the download section on the class website. So I have a couple of videos here. So if I choose this one, the jump slow-mo, what will happen is the size of that jump slow-mo video will automatically set the frame size, the speed, 29.94 seconds and all, 97 seconds and all that stuff, automatically based on the attributes of that video. Okay, so why don't I go ahead and do that? I'll select jump slow-mo, click open, and as you can see, it already set up the size of the video, and the size of the video here is 1280 by 720. Okay, the video is only 24 seconds, 24 frames per second long. Okay, so a bit slower. So let me go over the different panels here. All right. Okay, we just covered all of this here. So the After Effects interface here. So you have your project window, which I just showed you, that has the attributes of the video. A section called the Assets section. This is, think of this as like a folder kind of where you would put all of your assets. That's basically what they call any video files, any still images, any music files or sound effects files. You throw them all into the assets section. You would have a long list of all those items here, and from there you could pull or drag from here into the composition window to add it to your video. You would also create a corresponding layer in the layer section. So the jump slow-mo video, if I imported it into the assets section and then dragged it from here into the composition window, it would also create a layer for that video. All right, so you would create a layer as well as a timeline. Here we have the toolbar. It's a lot smaller than the Photoshop and Illustrator toolbar, but you do see some recognizable items here. And finally, we have the panel section, which is more or less the same like the panel section you see in Photoshop and Illustrator. Okay, so basically you got about 7 sections here. Project window that gives you a little thumbnail look of whatever asset is currently active. You have the assets section where you put all of the items that you're going to use into your video. You have the composition window, basically the area where you preview your video. Layer section that creates a layer for each asset that you have. The timeline window shows you the length of time and where in the video you are currently working on. Panel section has a bunch of different panels or palettes that you folks can use tools from or actions to help edit your video. And finally, the toolbar at the top. All right. So this part of the After Effects lecture notes goes a little bit more in depth of the different items for your asset section, project window, the composition, main composition window, as well as the layer area and the timeline. So you folks can take a look a little bit more in depth with that for your as you folks are reviewing the different parts of After Effects. All right. Okay, so the composition is is comprised of two things: assets or elements, video clips, images, sound clips, and frames, time sequence, keyframing, etc. The timeline is also known as the sequence in After Effects. The amount of layers that reside on the timeline is dependent upon how many assets you have in your asset area. Okay, so let's take a look at it here right now. So this is the asset area, the project window, layer, timeline, main composition window, panels, and of course the tools. So here we have our layer area. As I said before, we have AVI video or .mp4 that we dragged or we open up with the composition window. And here we have the time code area. Now if you hold down Command on a Mac or Control on a Windows computer and you click on this, you can switch between frames. Right now this is the counter for frames, and you can also switch back to the time code by holding down Command or Control on a Windows, clicking on it to switch back to times. So by clicking on this, you keep an eye here on the timeline, so you can choose to view your timeline either by time itself or by frames. Now frames might be a little bit confusing for you folks, so I pretty much stick with time for now. As you can see here, it goes by seconds, increments of 2. You could stretch out or shorten the amount of seconds. Right now only 24 seconds is showing, but if you move the slider at the bottom, you can even go lower down to the each second, 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, and so on. And if you move the slider even more, you'll jump to, that's when you start jumping into looks like frames, but you can go all the way down to such a small, increment. What I usually tend to do is keep it roughly around the seconds, like so. So roughly around there. It's up to you folks, but here's the 1 second mark, 2 second, 3 seconds, so on and so forth. You folks will be required for your project to make roughly about 20 seconds, so all the way up to here. Okay, now you can shorten what is viewed by using these time sequence markers, this blue marker at the top here as well as here. This can slide back and forth, and you can Say if you only want to work between 5 seconds, the 5 second and 10 second mark. You want to concentrate on that area and not see anything else. What you can do is click and drag this here to the 5 second mark. Click and drag this side down to the 10 second mark, and you'll know that you are working within this area like so, and it's basically about 5 seconds or so, maybe a little bit over, but you can basically narrow down the timeline so that you only work in one area at a time, right? And of course, if you want to stretch it back out, you just can grab either and pull it back like so. This is called the time slider or time sequence indicator. This lets you know exactly where you are in your video. Watch the video area as I click and drag this slider down. This is a manual way of moving your video forward or backwards, okay? So anytime you want to advance your video without playing it, you can grab left mouse click and drag this back and forth to the portion of the video you want to see or work with, okay? So I'll let you folks read through the foundations of After Effects and the different parts of the layout. All right. It's pretty self-explanatory, fairly easy to go through. Now, if you folks want to play the video, all you folks have to do is hit the spacebar. And After Effects will automatically play it. If you want to pause or stop the video, hit the spacebar again, and the time slider stops. You'll notice that this little green line filled up. At first, when I just was scrubbing through it, you were seeing little green marks appear. This is your catch. What I talked to you folks earlier about. And what happens is it loads the video into memory and makes a temporary file for After Effects so that it'll play back smoothly. Once you're done, you could, pretty much delete it. This is only a temporary file for you folks to work with as you folks edit your video. All right. So spacebar to start as well as spacebar to stop. And you can always use your time slider here to go backwards or forwards with your video. All right. So you can get some pretty cool effects just by manipulating your timeline. All right. Okay, so by the way, they call the action of sliding your timeline slider back and forth, they call that scrubbing. So if you watch other videos on YouTube for After Effects, you might hear people say, if you scrub through your timeline, basically scrubbing through your timeline means grabbing the time slider and scrubbing, going back and forth through your timeline. That's what they call scrubbing. All right. Okay. So that basically covers the introduction to what After Effects is, what it can do, the layout, opening up a composition, and the initial uh, parts of your work area and timeline. In the next few videos, I'll show you folks how to also open up new compositions and assets from outside of After Effects, as well as some of the tools. Okay, folks?